Welcome back to my YouTube channel. Coin of World. In today's episode we are diving deep into the story behind the 1961 United States 1 cent coin, the legendary penny bearing the motto "In God We Trust, Liberty," and the date 1961. This coin is a symbol of American history, culture, and coinage tradition, and by the end of this journey you will understand why this simple copper coin has remained one of the most studied, collected, and admired pieces in American full detailed history of the 1961 "In God We Trust, Liberty" Lincoln cent. The 1961 Lincoln cent is not just a coin, it is a portal to American ideals, tradition, and the heritage of coin production in the modern era, issued during a time of post-war prosperity, Cold War tension, space race competition, and the civil rights movement. This coin reflects both the political landscape and technological evolution of its time. When we look at this penny, we see the face of Abraham Lincoln engraved by Victor David Brenner, a design introduced in 1909 to celebrate Lincoln's 100th birth anniversary. It was the first time a real person's portrait was used on a circulating United States coin, and it represented a monumental shift from classical allegorical figures to honoring real American leaders. Victor David Brenner was commissioned by President Theodore Roosevelt, and he crafted the portrait based on a live photograph and a bronze plaque. The reverse initially featured two wheat ears framing the words 1 cent and United States of America, but in 1959, to mark the 150th anniversary of Lincoln's birth, the reverse was changed to the Lincoln Memorial, a neoclassical monument completed in 1922 and designed by Henry Bacon. This change in design was led by chief engraver Frank Gasborough, whose initials can be found on the coin, though subtly hidden compared to the prominent VDB on the 1909 original. The coin's inscriptions remain as powerful as ever. "In God We Trust," adopted during the Civil War and made mandatory on coins in 1956 under President Dwight D. Eisenhower. Liberty standing tall on the left of Lincoln, and the date 1961 on the right, with no mint mark if struck in Philadelphia, and AD below the date for coins struck in Denver. The 1961 cent is composed primarily of copper, 95%, with the remaining 5% being tin and zinc, a composition that had been consistent since 1864, with exceptions like the 1943 steel cent. In 1961, the U.S. Mint produced billions of these coins to meet the demands of a booming post-war economy that was seeing new highways, rising suburban neighborhoods expanding, and consumer culture taking root. Over 753 million pennies were struck in Philadelphia, while more than 1.7 Denver, making it one of the highest mintage years in U.S. coin history. Despite the high mintage, collectors still seek high-grade examples, especially those graded. Numismatists and historians often examine these coins for doubling die varieties, repunched mint marks, and other errors which can significantly increase a coin's value. In 1961, there were a few minor doubling examples and machine doubling errors, but no major double die varieties, making pristine condition and strike quality the main value determinants. The economic backdrop of the early 60s was also key to understanding this coin's context. The United States was in a transitional period with President John F. Kennedy taking office in January 1961. His vision for a new frontier included a space program, educational reform, and civil rights. Progress. The country was preparing to send a man to the moon, and citizens were beginning to experience rapid cultural and social change, yet the Lincoln cent remained a familiar part of daily life, used for everything from candy to newspapers. A humble reminder of Lincoln's legacy in a time of national evolution. Public trust in the motto "In God We Trust" also carried significant cultural weight as Americans turned to faith during the height of Cold War fears. The inclusion of liberty and Lincoln's face made the coin a trifecta of national values: freedom, faith, and leadership. The Lincoln Memorial reverse is often overlooked, but in the center between the columns, if you look closely, you will find the statue of Abraham Lincoln, echoing the real-life monument on the National Mall. This detail sets it apart from many other coin designs and adds depth to its historical significance. Collectors often wonder about the coin's lifespan. How long can a penny remain in circulation? Studies show that copper cents like those from 1961 can circulate for 30 to 50 years or more, though most are removed by collectors or the public due to their copper content, which became more valuable than the face value by the 1980s, especially after the composition changed to mostly zinc in 1982. So the 1961 Lincoln cent is a product of artistry, symbolism, industry, and the times it was born into, from the artist's original design choices to the machinery and processes of the U.S. Mint. The coin is a reflection of changing America, yet it holds tightly to timeless values. It has passed through the hands of millions. From children saving for candy to veterans paying bus fare to shopkeepers counting change. It's been a witness to countless human stories, all while carrying the image of a man who helped preserve the Union and the words "In God We Trust," liberty, and 1961, which root it firmly in American identity. Certainly here is the continued extended script for your 2-hour professional documentary on the 1961 "In God We Trust," liberty, Lincoln cent. Written in a single flow, line-free format and in straightforward English. The journey of the 1961 Lincoln cent begins long before the coin was ever struck. To understand its true value and importance, we must explore the roots of the Lincoln cent itself. The decision to feature Abraham Lincoln on the penny in 1909 was a turning point in American coinage. Up until then, no real person had appeared on circulating coins because of the belief that the Republic should avoid the glorification of individuals in the manner of kings and emperors. But the centennial of Lincoln's birth changed that attitude. The people admired Lincoln not as a ruler but as a symbol of liberty, humility, and leadership. Victor David Brenner, an immigrant from Lithuania who had trained as an engraver, was commissioned to produce the portrait based on a live photograph by Matthew Brady, and the resulting design has become one of the longest-running coin portraits in world history. Fast forward to 1961, the United States Mint had fully transitioned from the wheat reverse to the Lincoln Memorial reverse, introduced in 1959. This was no minor shift. It represented a new national focus on unity, justice, and civil values. The Lincoln Memorial was not just a building, it was a shrine for peace and civil rights. It had already become a place where thousands gathered for protests, vigils, and ceremonies. The image of Lincoln seated between the columns became symbolic of silent strength and wise governance, and this was now placed on every cent in American pockets. In the 1961 version of the cent, the coin measures 19 millimeters in diameter, weighs about 3.11 grams, and consists of bronze, which is a copper alloy, as copper prices fluctuated in the coming decades. This composition would become more valuable than the coin's face value, adding another layer of interest for collectors and metal investors. In the mints, the process of producing billions of coins involved giant presses feeding planches into dies struck under immense pressure. The dies used to create the coins had to be replaced regularly due to wear and tear, and each new die had slight differences, causing minor varieties. This is why coin collectors often search for specific die varieties in the 1961 cent, looking for repunched mint marks, RPM's slight doubling, or unusual features. The Denver Mint used a D-mint mark, and the mint mark was still being punched by hand onto each working die, making such varieties more common than in later decades. The proof coins of 1961 were struck in Philadelphia, using special dies and polished blanks to create a high shine, mirror-like finish and frosted details. These coins were never released for circulation and were sold only to collectors, often in proof sets. Today, these coins in high grade command premium prices and are carefully graded by professional agencies under bright lights, and historically the early 1960s were a time of significant change and tension. The Cold War was in full swing. The Bay of Pigs invasion occurred in 1961, and the Berlin Wall would soon rise. The country was experiencing economic growth but also civil unrest. Martin Luther King Jr. was rising as a leader, and the seeds of the civil rights movement were taking firm root. In this climate, the Lincoln cent carried more than monetary value. It carried a reminder of unity and leadership. It passed from hand to hand as the country struggled with its identity and future challenges. Children would use the penny in school lunches, jukeboxes, arcade games, and bubble gum machines. Adults used it in toll booths, parking meters, and charity boxes. The coin traveled across cities, towns, farmlands, and military bases, and in doing so it became a quiet witness to a transformative period. In U.S. history, historians and numismatists often study the wear patterns on these coins to understand circulation habits. Coins with full details on Lincoln's hair or the steps of the Lincoln Memorial are considered better struck and more valuable. Many 1961 cents have lost their luster or become dark from oxidation, but copper collectors appreciate even these for their natural patina and aging characteristics. In educational institutions, numismatics began to be introduced as a method of learning history and economics, and the 1961 penny served as a perfect case study to explore Lincoln's impact, the U.S. Mint's evolution, and broader economic principles. Teachers would ask students to bring coins from home and identify the year mint mark, and designed to spark conversations about national events and historical timelines. This engagement led many young Americans to begin coin collecting as a hobby that would last a lifetime. Over time, collectors created folders, albums, and specialized holders to preserve 1961 cents in various conditions. Business strikes, proofs, errors, and high-grade examples all found their places in American collections. The Red Book and other catalogs listed varieties, prices, and mintages annually. Contributing to the cultural memory and value of these coins, television shows, books, and museums dedicated to Lincoln often featured the Lincoln cent as a physical connection to his enduring legacy. While the coin was common in number, its symbolic weight grew heavier with every generation. Internationally, the Lincoln cent, including the 1961 issue, was often used in trade exchanges, educational gifts, and goodwill programs. The U.S. Mint even sent sets of coins to foreign dignitaries and allies, promoting American ideals and artistry around the globe. People in countries from Europe to Asia received American coins in aid packages, tourism, or military presents, and the image of Lincoln, along with the motto "In God We Trust," became a worldwide representation of American democracy and integrity. Welcome back to my YouTube channel. Coin of World: In God We Trust, Liberty, 1962. Full long detailed script, no dots, no lines, only straight script. English suitable for a 2-hour video. The 1962 Lincoln cent is a coin that continues to draw attention from collectors, historians, and those who appreciate the significance of American numismatics. This penny, minted in 1962, is a part of the long-running Lincoln cent series, which began in 1909 to commemorate the 100th birthday of Abraham Lincoln, the 16th President of the United States. Abraham Lincoln is one of the most respected and influential figures in American history, and his appearance on the cent was the first time a real person was featured on a circulating American coin. The coin from 1962 carries forward this tradition with pride and purpose. To understand the 1962 Lincoln cent, we must go back in time to the origins of the Lincoln cent, which was introduced during the presidency of Theodore Roosevelt, who sought to beautify American coinage and elevate its design. The artist chosen to design the Lincoln cent was Victor David Brenner, a Lithuanian immigrant whose work was inspired by a desire to celebrate the ideals of liberty and democracy. The obverse of the coin features a right-facing profile of Abraham Lincoln with the motto "In God We Trust" inscribed above his head, the word "Liberty" to the left, and the date 1962 to the right, often accompanied by a mint mark if applicable. In 1962, the coin was minted primarily at 2 major United States mint facilities: the Philadelphia Mint, which issued coins without a mint mark, and the Denver Mint, which used a small D-mint mark. The San Francisco Mint had ceased regular cent production for circulation by this time and was primarily used for proof coins, though it would re-enter cent production later on. The total mintage in 1962 was immense, with over 2.5 billion Lincoln cents struck at the Philadelphia Mint and more than 1.5 billion from the Denver Mint. This massive production ensured the coin's wide circulation across the country and its enduring presence in the lives of American citizens. The composition of the 1962 Lincoln cent is another important aspect of its story. The coin is made primarily of copper, specifically 95% copper and 5% tin. and zinc. This alloy had been standard since the coin's introduction in 1909 and would continue until 1982, when rising copper prices forced a change to a predominantly zinc composition. With a thin copper coating, the weight of the coin was approximately 3.11 grams and its diameter measured 19 millimeters. The coin's edge was plain and unreeded, as with all Lincoln cents. The reverse of the 1962 cent retained the wheat ears design originally created by Brenner, was replaced by the Lincoln Memorial design starting in 1959 to commemorate the 150th anniversary of Abraham Lincoln's birth. The 1962 cent therefore features the Lincoln Memorial on the reverse, designed by Frank Gasparro. This design depicts the monument in Washington, D.C. as a symbol of unity and respect for Lincoln's legacy. Within the details of the memorial, it is possible to see a small statue of Lincoln mirroring the real statue inside the actual memorial. The economic context of the early 1960s in the United States is crucial to understanding the environment in which this coin was produced. The year 1962 saw President John F. Kennedy in office, a time of significant domestic and international change. The United States was in the midst of the Cold War, with tensions running high between the Western and Eastern blocs. The space race was accelerating, civil rights movements were gaining momentum, and American culture was undergoing dramatic transformation. The Lincoln cent, in circulation during this time, was part of everyday commerce used by millions of Americans to purchase goods and services at a time when the value of a single cent was still quite tangible and meaningful. In terms of numismatic value, the 1962 Lincoln cent is relatively common due to its high mintage, however high grade examples, especially those that are uncirculated or display full red color, are desirable among collectors. Coins with unusual errors such as double dies, off-center strikes, or other minting anomalies can fetch higher premiums. Among those who seek out rare variations, one interesting variant to note is the 1962 proof cent, produced in limited quantities by the Philadelphia Mint for collectors. Proof coins are struck using special dies and polished planchets, resulting in coins with mirror-like fields and sharp details. These coins were packaged and sold by the United States Mint to the public, and today remain popular among those who appreciate the craftsmanship of fine coinage. It is important also to consider the historical symbolism carried by the phrases inscribed on the coin, such as "In God We Trust," which reflects the spiritual heritage and values that many Americans hold dear. The phrase "Liberty" is a reminder of the nation's founding principles and the sacrifices made to secure freedom for all, and the date 1962 marks a specific moment in American history where traditional values were being tested against the winds of change and modernization. As a result, the coin becomes more than just a monetary unit, it is a witness to a changing era. The Lincoln Memorial on the reverse of the coin is particularly significant because it serves as both a tribute and a teaching tool. Through the image on the coin, generations of Americans were reminded of Abraham Lincoln's dedication to unity, justice, and equality. The design invites people to reflect on his leadership during the Civil War and the Emancipation Equality the design. People to reflect on his leadership during the Civil War and the Emancipation Proclamation, which helped to abolish slavery in the United States. The memorial is a place where millions visit each year, and its depiction on the coin brings that solemn national symbol into the palm of every American. Over time, many of these coins have worn down through circulation, yet they remain widely collected in rolls and bags and continue to be found in change today for many collectors. The 1962 Lincoln cent serves as a starting point into the broader world of coin collecting, or as a nostalgic piece from their youth. Its availability makes it an excellent coin for beginners, while the pursuit of high-grade examples or era coins offers challenges for advanced collectors as well. There are also fascinating stories connected to these coins from the point of view of those who handled them. Perhaps a soldier in 1962 carried this coin in his pocket while serving his country. Perhaps a young student used it to buy a piece of candy. Perhaps it was saved by a parent in a jar for future savings. The coin thus becomes a witness to countless untold stories across the American experience. Coin dealers and grading services today look at factors like luster, strike, clarity, and color when evaluating the condition of a 1962 cent. Those that remain red, meaning they have retained their original coppery color, are worth more than those that have toned brown over time. Full steps on the Lincoln Memorial, clear lines on Lincoln's face, and the absence of contact marks increase the desirability of the coin. Professional grading services such as PCGS and NGC certify coins and place them into holders that protect their value and ensure authenticity. In educational contexts, this coin is also used to teach students about American history, economics, and art. The symbolism, the metallurgy, the design elements, and the role of currency in daily life all serve as learning opportunities from this. One small coin museums often display early examples, and collectors societies publish research and findings about varieties and production figures. The 1962 cent becomes part of a larger network of knowledge and appreciation. Ultimately, the 1962 Lincoln cent is not just a piece of metal. It is a legacy struck into copper. It represents the values, struggles, and aspirations of a generation. It serves as a tribute to a president who preserved the Union and redefined freedom, and it functions as a vehicle through which everyday people can engage with the stories of their nation and the art of coin collecting. From design to mintage, from circulation to collection, the 1962 cent remains a powerful symbol of American life and history. Let this video be your guide into the story of the 1962 Lincoln cent, and may it inspire a greater appreciation for the coins that pass through our hands and the history they quietly carry within.